Today, Zorin OS is a distro that many people have heard of. However, back in around the early 2010s, it was a rather fledgling distro, being based off of Ubuntu, which is based off of Debian, which you can't go wrong with being based off of Debian, being the second oldest distro that is still active. I'm referring to Debian here. It seems quite interesting to look at how it was in its early days. So that's exactly what today's video is about. First, we need to install it, because by this point, I don't really need to do any history for this topic because what is there to cover? This was like the start of the distro. This is like the start of the story. I will briefly mention that it originated in Ireland, but I don't really have anything that can really, So we're going to be using the Dell Inspiron 530, a computer I have not shown on my channel since earlier this year, like in March. Oopsies. Somebody hopped up. But, well, let's start installing this. I want to generally get a brief feel for the live environment, which is a bit interesting since this distro's main default user interface reflects Microsoft Windows from this time, with Windows Vista and particularly in this case Windows 7. Oh yeah, and booting off of the disk drive takes a surprisingly long time. I think I might want to replace the disk drive in this computer for obvious reasons, especially since it was making some sort of clunking noise while in use. It works, but I don't think I want to keep it around. Setting up is quite straightforward. It tells you welcome, then provides what time zone, what keyboard layout, and how you want partitions to be set up. I'm going to set this up to be a dual boot system because it's like one of the only dual boot systems I have. And now let's set this up. Now that we have installation completed, I'm going to wait for the next day because I was recording this on a day where I had a particularly nasty cold and I still feel like a piece of crap, which is why my voice sounds the way it does right now. So we're going to skip over to the next day. And immediately, installation took a bit faster to do. It's good for the time. And I want to briefly show you this startup sound, which I found nice. Initially, due to the UI and icon layout, I initially kind of wanted to point and laugh, because it looked so much like Windows 7, and because of this comically large computer icon. But honestly, these system sounds have generally changed my perception of this in a very short period of time, and these are really nice sounds. Anyway, because I'm not going in any particular order here, I'm going to start with this Notes app. It shares an icon in common with a note-taking app that I have installed on my phone. Also, I'm not very fond of this wobbly effect that is made when the window moves around, so I'm going to turn it off. So it's a bit complicated to do at first, but I figured it out. It's not too hard. It's actually quite simple with this distro, which I found kind of nice, even for being as old as it is. Here we get some more amazing system sounds. I think I like these sounds. And the sound preferences window, as well as the background part of the thing that I forgot to mention earlier, alongside some pretty nice screensavers. The Ubuntu Software Center, because I should mention that if it isn't already clear, and it will become a tinge more clear later, this distro is based off of Ubuntu, or at least was for the time. I'm not entirely sure. It probably still is because, you know. Okay, a few days later into editing the audio, I've realized that the comment I made here questioning the distro that Zorin OS is based off of is utter bullshit. And now let's get into some of the bundled applications, which include OpenOffice.org, Mozilla Firefox, the Rhythmbox music player, alongside another audio/video player that is mainly intended for, like, video. Ubuntu Tweak, Wine, alongside some basic necessities such as a calculator and text editor. And of course you can't forget the terminal. I also forgot this, but GIMP is also one of the pre-bundled applications. And that's generally going to be about it. Overall, this is a really nice Linux distro. I was a bit skeptical at first due to some of the similarities in some graphics between Microsoft Windows or kind of Mac OS, at least to my brain, but it is generally not that bad. I generally would not have expected to see this much graphic capability around 2010, although Linux isn't that far behind from Windows and Mac OS, at least from during this time period, but now, in the present day, Linux is pretty much properly up to speed with Windows and Mac. Meaning that, generally speaking, these days, it's quite a decent option if you're just not very fond of Windows, or you don't really have a reason to use Windows. In fact, I'm probably going to use a Windows 10 Linux Mint dual boot once Windows 10 ends support. But, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.